Chapter 1. The Unwavering Needle's Lie. Sergeant Rixford Banner, retired, squinted against the relentless Nevada sun. Dust devils danced across the cracked earth, miniature whirlwinds of grit and desolation. His jeep, a relic of more certain times, bounced over the uneven terrain. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, not from the rough ride, but from the clench of frustration. 3 days. 3 days he'd been combing this god-forsaken patch of desert for his nephew Leo. 18 years old, full of piss and vinegar, and a worrying fascination with urban legends. One of those legends had apparently whispered of a place out here, a place that wasn't on any map. Rex consulted the compass mounted on his dash. The needle quivered, then stubbornly pointed northeast. He grunted. According to his paper map, a topographical survey from the 70s, northeast should be taking him towards the skeletal remains of Highway 93. Yet the sun, already past its zenith, suggested his orientation was off. Terribly off. He'd been a soldier for 30 years. Land navigation was second nature, burned into his synapses. He could read the earth, the stars, the very angle of the shadows, or he used to. Yesterday his GPS had sputtered and died. Not a battery issue, he'd checked. It simply went blank, a dead screen reflecting his own grim face. His satellite phone followed suit an hour later. Now only the old magnetic compass remained, and it was behaving like a drunken sailor. He tapped its glass. The needle swung wildly, then resettled, still northeast. "Damn it, Leo," Rex muttered, the words swallowed by the wind whipping through the open jeep. "What kind of trouble did you find?" The heat was oppressive. It pressed down, a physical weight making the air shimmer above the hood of the jeep. He took a long pull from his canteen. The water was warm, metallic. Each landmark he'd meticulously noted on his map, a distinct rock formation, a dried-up riverbed, a rusted water tower seemed to have vanished, or worse, rearranged itself when he wasn't observing. He circled the same peculiar cluster of Joshua trees twice. He was certain of it, though the compass insisted he was maintaining a straight course. His nephew's last text message, sent 4 days prior, was cryptic. "Found it. Unbelievable. Wish me luck. Don't tell Mom." Attached was a blurry photo, a smear of garish lights against a night sky, too indistinct to identify. The location data was corrupted. Rex had triangulated the general area from Leo's known interests in desert folklore and a half-remembered conversation about a ghost casino. He stopped the jeep, engine ticking in the silence that followed. The silence of the desert was a profound thing, not empty, but filled with tiny, almost imperceptible sounds. The skitter of a lizard, the rustle of dry scrub, the sigh of the wind. Today, however, a new quality infused the quiet and expectant stillness, as if the desert itself held its breath. Rex climbed out, stretching his stiff limbs. He pulled a pair of binoculars from the passenger seat. He scanned the horizon, a wavering line of purple mountains in the far distance. Nothing, just endless expanse of baked earth and sparse, tenacious vegetation. He turned slowly, a full 360 degrees. The sun beat down. Sweat trickled into his eyes, stinging. Then he saw it, or thought he did. A flicker. To the east, where no civilization should be, where his compass swore was only more desolate wasteland. A brief, almost subliminal pulse of light, like heat haze catching a distant reflection but sharper, more structured. He raised the binoculars again. The air in that direction was thick, distorted. It was difficult to focus. For a moment he perceived a structure, impossibly large, shimmering. Then it was gone, replaced by the familiar, featureless desert. A mirage. He was experienced enough to recognize one. This, this was different. It had a quality of deliberate illusion. His compass, he noted without surprise, now pointed directly east, towards the ephemeral shimmer. "All right, Leo," Rex said to the empty air, his voice a low growl. "Let's see what game you've stumbled into." He got back into the jeep. The engine turned over with a reassuring roar. He pointed the vehicle east. The old soldier in him, the part that thrived on confronting the unknown, felt a cold prickle of anticipation. The part of him that was Leo's uncle felt a deeper, more profound dread. The desert seemed to watch him go, its silence no longer expectant but predatory. Chapter 2: Glitches in the Algorithm. Yasmin Al-Jamil, Yaz to her modest online following, scowled at her drone's controller. The screen displayed a single, infuriating message: "Signal lost. Attempting reconnection." Below it, the battery indicator for the drone itself blinked a critical red, though she'd launched it with a full charge less than 10 minutes ago. "Seriously," she muttered, pushing a strand of dark hair from her forehead. Perspiration made it stick. "Come on, Betsy, don't do this to me." Betsy was her top-of-the-line aerial drone, her eye in the sky, her partner in capturing the desolate beauty of forgotten places. Today, Betsy was being a temperamental beast. Yaz was parked in her customized van, a mobile studio and living space on what was supposed to be a barely used service road. She'd driven hours from Vegas, lured by whispers on obscure internet forums, tales of a place that appeared and vanished, a shifting sands casino, a modern El Dorado for seekers of the weird, perfect fodder for her travel blog, Nomad's Nexus. Her niche was debunking, or more rarely, finding a kernel of truth in such legends. Her primary GPS unit had started acting erratically about an hour back, placing her icon in the middle of a non-existent lake. Her backup, a rugged handheld device, now showed her spinning in place, though the van was stationary. Her phone, no service for the last 50 miles. Standard for remote areas, but the abruptness was unsettling. Now Betsy. The drone controller beeped forlornly. Connection failed. RTH initiated. Return to home. Good if it worked. Betsy was programmed to return to its launch point if the signal was lost. Yaz stepped out of the van, shielding her eyes, and scanned the pale blue sky. Nothing. The drone should be visible, a small speck descending. The air was still, the silence broken only by the pinging of the cooling engine and the controller's unhappy beeps. She checked her watch, a smart device that also tracked her coordinates. Its screen was frozen on a time from 20 minutes ago. A knot of unease tightened in her stomach. This wasn't a simple equipment malfunction. This was systemic. Everything with a circuit board seemed to be having a meltdown. "Okay, universe, very funny," Yaz said, trying for levity she didn't feel. She was resourceful, a problem solver. There was always a logical explanation. Solar flares, some unannounced military jamming exercise. She climbed onto the van's roof for a better vantage point, her high-tech binoculars in hand. The desert spread out around her, a vast, indifferent canvas of browns and ochres. The heat was a physical presence, making the distant mountains ripple. She swept the landscape slowly. Rock, scrub, sand. More rock, more scrub, more sand. Then a glint, far off to what she guessed was southeast, though her internal compass felt skewed. A flash of movement, a vehicle. She focused the binoculars. A jeep kicking up a plume of dust. Too far to make out details, but it was definitely moving. Towards her, away. It was hard to tell. The air between them seemed to warp, to twist the image. Then beyond the jeep, or perhaps around it, another shimmer, similar to the one Rex had seen. Brighter, more sustained. It was as if a piece of the sky had been cut out and replaced with molten glass. For a heartbeat, Yaz thought she saw structures within it, towers, lights, an impossible edifice of crystal and gold, blazing under the desert sun. It was there, and then it was gone, subsumed by the heat haze. The drone controller let out a final, despairing squawk and went dark. Dead. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," Yaz breathed. Betsy was expensive. More than that, Betsy was her tool, her safety net in many ways. The jeep on the horizon changed direction, or she perceived it to. It seemed to be heading towards the area where the shimmer had been. A cold dread, entirely out of character for her usual adventurous spirit, snaked down her spine. This wasn't a fun mystery anymore. This felt wrong. The failing tech, the optical illusion, the oppressive silence. It was a confluence of too many strange things. She looked at her van, her sanctuary, her escape route. If it would start. Her hand went to the keys in her pocket. The smart key fob felt inert, lifeless. She scrambled down from the roof, a sense of urgency propelling her. The desert, moments before a subject of detached curiosity, now felt like a trap slowly closing. The shimmering mirage, she suspected, was the bait, and the jeep was heading straight for it. Maybe she was too. Chapter 3: Convergence in Dust. Rex's jeep was a speck in Yaz's binoculars when her van's engine refused to turn over. Not a cough, not a sputter, just a dead click when she turned the key in the ignition. The smart fob was useless. The manual key in the ignition felt like it was turning nothing of consequence. The dashboard lights, which had flickered erratically before, were now completely dark. "No, no, no," she whispered, thumping the steering wheel with the heel of her hand. "Not now." Panic, cold and sharp, threatened to overwhelm her. She fought it down. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. She was miles from anywhere, her communications were down, her drone was gone, and her vehicle was a multi-ton paperweight. The distant jeep, however, was still moving. It was closer now, perhaps a mile or two away, heading in a direction that seemed to align with where she'd seen that impossible, shimmering structure. A wild thought: what if that driver had answers, or at least a working vehicle? It was a long shot. He could be hostile. He could be just as lost and useless as she was, but he was movement. He was another human being in this sudden, unnerving emptiness. Yaz grabbed her emergency backpack, water, first aid, a heavy wrench, more for defense than repair if she was honest, and her old-fashioned, reliable magnetic compass. She glanced at it. The needle spun lazily, like a confused weather vane in a shifting breeze, before settling on a point that felt intuitively wrong. She shook it. It did it again. "Great," she muttered. "You too." She started walking towards the Jeep's dust trail, the sun hammering down on her. The ground was uneven, loose scree and sharp rocks. Every step was an effort. The silence, broken only by her own ragged breathing and the crunch of her boots, was immense. It pressed in, amplifying her sense of isolation. Rex saw the figure trudging through the heat haze long before he could make out any details. A solitary person on foot in this inferno, either incredibly desperate or incredibly foolish, or both. He slowed the Jeep, his hand instinctively moving towards the heavy-duty maglite on the seat beside him, not its intended use, but a decent club in a pinch. As he drew closer, the figure resolved into a woman. Youngish, dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat, carrying a backpack. She looked exhausted but determined. She waved, a tired, almost tentative gesture. Rex pulled the Jeep to a halt a few yards away, engine idling. He studied her. No obvious threat. Her clothes were practical hiking gear. Her eyes, even from this distance, looked wide, a little spooked. "Having some trouble," Rex called out, his voice raspy from the dust. Yaz stopped, shielding her eyes. The man in the Jeep was older, weathered, with a military bearing evident even in the way he sat. His eyes were narrowed, assessing. "You could say that," she replied, her voice hoarse. "My van's dead. Everything electronic packed up about an hour ago. Yours still running, I see." Rex grunted. "Barely. Compass is shot. GPS phone all gone." He looked her up and down. "You out here alone?" "Yasmin Al-Jamil." "Yaz," she offered, taking a hesitant step closer. "Travel blogger. Was trying to get some footage of the middle of nowhere, apparently." She gestured vaguely at the landscape. "You." "Rex Banner, looking for my nephew." He didn't elaborate. "You see anything unusual before your gear went down? Lights, structures?" Yaz's eyes widened slightly. "You saw it too. The shimmer, east of here, I think, looked like a city for a second." Rex nodded slowly. "Thought it was a mirage. But this compass," he tapped the erratic device on his dash, "seems to think it's real. It's been pulling me that way." "Mine's doing the same," Yaz said, pulling her own compass from her pocket. She held it out. The needle swung, then pointed in roughly the same direction as Rex, towards the area where the mirage had been. "My drone went down heading that way too." An uneasy silence settled between them. The desert wind sighed around the Jeep. "So," Yaz said, breaking it, "a mystery structure that only appears in flickers, kills electronics and messes with compasses. Sounds like a good story if I live to blog it." Her attempt at humor fell flat, even to her own ears. Rex considered her. She was clearly capable, not a panicky civilian, and she'd seen the same thing. Two witnesses were better than one, especially when you were starting to doubt your own sanity. "My nephew, Leo, he's into this kind of stuff. Legends, weird places. I think he came looking for it." "And you think he found it?" Yaz asked quietly. "I think he's in trouble," Rex stated. "I'm heading towards that shimmer. You can come, or you can stay with your van. Can't guarantee this Jeep will get us both back, but it's moving." Yaz looked back at her silent, useless van, then at the vast, unforgiving desert stretching in every other direction. Then she looked at Rex Banner. He seemed solid, dependable, even if his eyes held a grim light. Staying here was a slow death sentence. Going with him, well, that was an unknown, but at least it was an active unknown. "I'm a terrible hiker in this heat," Yaz said, managing a weak smile. "Got room?" Rex nodded towards the passenger seat. "Hop in, but buckle up, and keep that wrench handy. I've got a bad feeling this isn't just a place. It's a place that doesn't want to be found, or left." Yaz climbed in, the worn seat hot against her legs. As Rex put the Jeep in gear, she took one last look at her compass. The needle was steady now, unwavering, pointing directly towards the shimmering anomaly that had swallowed her drone and quite possibly Rex's nephew. Pointing towards the place they were now calling with a shared sense of foreboding, the Shifting Sands Casino. The air itself seemed to crackle with a strange energy as they drove towards it, the silence of the desert replaced by a low, almost subaudible hum that vibrated through the floorboards of the Jeep. Chapter 4: The Gilded Welcome. The drive towards the shimmer was unnervingly silent, punctuated only by the growl of the Jeep's engine and the crunch of tires on gravel. Rex kept his eyes on the horizon. Yaz scanned the periphery. The low hum they'd both noticed persisted, a thrumming in the bones, a pressure in the ears. The compass needles on both their devices remained locked, pointing towards their unseen destination. After what felt like an hour, though Yaz's watch remained frozen, and the sun seemed to hang motionless in the sky, the shimmer solidified. It wasn't gradual. One moment there was heat haze and ambiguous light. The next, an edifice loomed before them, vast and utterly out of place. The Shifting Sands Casino. It was an explosion of ostentatious architecture, a fever dream of gold and glass and neon, rising from the desert floor like a malevolent jewel. Towers scraped the sky, adorned with pulsating lights that spelled out its name in glittering cursive. Fountains, impossibly lush in this arid wasteland, jetted plumes of water that caught the sunlight in rainbow arcs. Valets in crisp, sand-colored uniforms stood at attention by a sweeping circular driveway where gleaming, expensive cars were parked. Cars that looked too clean, too perfect, as if they'd just rolled off a showroom floor. The sheer audacity of it, its sudden, concrete reality, was breathtaking and deeply wrong. "No way," Yaz breathed, her voice barely a whisper. It's real." Rex said nothing, his expression grim. He slowed the Jeep, pulling to a stop 100 yards from the grand entrance. The hum was louder here, almost a physical force. He could feel it in his teeth. The air smelled strangely sweet, like overripe fruit and ozone. "This isn't right," Rex stated, his gaze sweeping the opulent facade. "No access roads, no power lines, no tire tracks leading in or out except what we might be making." Yaz pointed. "Look at the cars, those models. Some of them haven't been made in decades, others look futuristic." Indeed, a vintage Cadillac sat beside a sleek, low-slung vehicle that seemed to hover slightly above the asphalt. None of them bore any dust. As they watched, one of the valets, impossibly tall and slender, turned his head slowly towards them. His face was shadowed by his cap, but Yaz felt a chill despite the heat. He raised a white-gloved hand in a beckoning gesture. "Friendly," Rex muttered, his hand tightening on the maglite. "Too friendly," Yaz agreed. "What do we do?" "Leo might be in there," Rex said, his voice tight. "I have to check." He looked at Yaz. "You don't. You can wait here if I'm not back in an hour." Yaz shook her head. "And do what? Become a desert skeleton next to my dead van. Besides, my drone in there somewhere, and I have a feeling this place owes me some answers for my dead tech. We go in together, watch each other's backs." Rex gave a curt nod. He respected her grit, even if he thought she was being reckless. He put the Jeep in gear and drove slowly towards the entrance. As they approached, the tall valet glided towards them. He moved with an unnatural smoothness, his feet seeming to float above the ground. He reached the Jeep as Rex cut the engine. The valet smiled. It was a wide, perfect smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. His eyes were like polished obsidian, reflecting the garish lights of the casino but nothing of the desert or of them. His skin was flawless, almost waxy. He wore a uniform of shimmering, sand-colored fabric that seemed to subtly shift in hue. "Welcome," the valet said, his voice a melodious baritone, unnervingly calm. "To the shifting sands. We've been expecting you." Rex narrowed his eyes. "Expecting us how?" The valet's smile widened if possible. "The desert provides. The sands whisper of all who wander near. Mr. Banner, is it? And Ms. Al-Jamil." Yaz felt a jolt. How could he know their names? "Your nephew, Leo, awaits you, Mr. Banner," the gilded guide continued, his obsidian eyes fixed on Rex. "He is enjoying our hospitality, and Ms. Al-Jamil, your property, has been secured." He made a subtle gesture towards the casino entrance. This was the gilded guide, Yaz realized with a sickening certainty. The entity that met new arrivals. "Take us to Leo," Rex demanded, his voice hard. "But of course," the gilded guide said, his smile unwavering. "All in good time. First, why not enjoy the amenities? The games are lively, the refreshments are plentiful. The house extends its warmest welcome." He opened Yaz's door with a flourish. The air that wafted from within the casino was cool, carrying the scent of expensive perfume and something else, something indefinably strange and cloying. Yaz hesitated, then stepped out, wrench clutched in her hand. Rex followed, his maglite held loosely at his side. The gilded guide led them towards the enormous, ornate doors, which hissed open automatically as they approached, revealing an interior of staggering, almost blinding opulence. A cavernous lobby stretched before them, all marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and crimson velvet. Slot machines chimed and whirred, their lights flashing in hypnotic patterns. The murmur of voices and the clatter of chips came from deeper within. Patrons, impeccably dressed, moved with an air of detached elegance, their faces pale and drawn beneath the glittering lights. None of them met their eyes. "This way, please," the gilded guide said, gesturing with a long, elegant hand towards the main casino floor. "Fortune awaits." Rex and Yaz exchanged a look. Fortune was the last thing on their minds. Survival and finding Leo were paramount. But they were inside now, and the gilded, welcoming doors had hissed shut behind them with a sound like a well-oiled trap. The low hum was more intense here, a pervasive vibration that seemed to resonate with the very marrow of their bones. The game, it seemed, had already begun. Chapter 5: Stakes and Illusions. The casino floor was a sensory assault. A cacophony of electronic jingles, distant laughter, the clink of ice in glasses, and the pervasive, almost subaudible hum that Yaz now recognized as the casino's heartbeat. The air, thick with the scent of stale smoke, cheap perfume, and something vaguely metallic, felt heavy, recycled. Patrons drifted between slot machines and gaming tables like somnambulists, their faces illuminated by the flashing lights, revealing expressions that were either unnaturally ecstatic or deeply, profoundly vacant. "Leo, where is he?" Rex's voice cut through the din, directed at the gilded guide who had paused near a roulette table. The gilded guide turned, his smile still fixed. "Patience, Mr. Banner. The shifting sands operates on its own schedule. Your nephew is engaged. Why not try your own luck? The first game is always complimentary for new guests." He gestured towards a gleaming slot machine, its screen displaying an array of enticing symbols, diamonds, gold bars, lucky sevens. Yaz felt a strange pull towards the machine, a flicker of gambler's instinct she hadn't known she possessed. The lights were mesmerizing. Just one pull. Rex put a hand on her arm. "We're not here to play." The gilded guide's eyes, those obsidian mirrors, flickered. For a microsecond, Yaz thought she saw something else in their depths, a flash of cold, ancient hunger. Then it was gone. "As you wish. But the house encourages participation. It enhances the experience." He then glided away, disappearing into the throng of gamblers with unnerving speed. "Enhances what? Their profit," Yaz muttered, shaking off the machine's strange allure. She pulled out her compass. The needle spun erratically, then went limp, pointing at nothing. Her phone, when she checked it, was still a dead brick. So much for navigation. "We stick together," Rex said, his eyes scanning the crowd, the exits, the security cameras that seemed to follow their every move. "Look for Leo. Try not to draw too much attention." Easier said than done. They were dressed for the desert, not a high-roller casino. Their dusty, practical clothes stood out amidst the silks and suits of the other patrons. Several gamblers spared them brief, incurious glances before returning to their games, their eyes glazed. They began to walk slowly through the maze of slot machines. Each one seemed to call out, its jingle a personalized invitation. Yaz found herself pausing by a machine themed around ancient Egypt. The hieroglyphs on its screen seemed to shift, to form words she almost understood. "Yaz," Rex's voice, sharp and low, broke the spell. She blinked, shaking her head. The hieroglyphs were just random symbols again. "Sorry," she said, feeling a flush of embarrassment. "These things are persuasive." "They're designed to be," Rex said grimly. "Keep focused." They moved towards the table games. Roulette wheels spun with a silent, hypnotic grace. Cards were dealt with swift, precise movements by croupiers whose faces were masks of professional indifference. One croupier, a woman with unnaturally red lips and eyes that seemed too large for her face, met Rex's gaze. She smiled, a slow, knowing smile, and gestured towards an empty seat at her blackjack table. Rex ignored her. The patrons at the tables were strangers still. A woman in a feathered headdress from what looked like the 1920s sat beside a man in a futuristic silver jumpsuit. They gambled with an intensity that was almost painful to watch, their hands trembling as they placed their bets, their faces contorting with momentary triumph or crushing despair. The chips they used weren't standard casino tokens. Some were smooth, dark stones. Others glinted like gold nuggets or shards of bone. "What are they betting with?" Yaz whispered, her gaze drawn to a pile of what looked like dried leaves at one man's elbow. "More than money, I reckon," Rex said, his voice grim. He spotted a bar at the far end of the casino floor, tucked away in a shadowed alcove. "Let's try there. Bartenders hear things." The bartender was a hulking figure with a shaved head and elaborate tattoos coiling up his thick arms. He polished a glass with a dirty rag, his eyes never leaving them as they approached. "Looking for someone," Rex said, leaning on the bar. "Young man, 18, dark hair, answers to Leo." The bartender continued polishing, his expression unreadable. "Lots of people come here looking for someone or something." His voice was a gravelly rasp. "Most find more than they bargained for." "He was seen here," Yaz pressed. "The guide who met us said so." The bartender finally stopped polishing. He set the glass down with a soft thud. His eyes, small and deeply set, flicked towards a darkened doorway behind the bar, then back to them. "Some doors are best left unopened, little lady. Some debts best left unpaid." "We're not leaving without him," Rex stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. The bartender grunted, a sound that could have been amusement or contempt. He picked up another glass. "Everyone says that at first." He then nodded almost imperceptibly towards a different area, a section of the casino they hadn't explored where the lights were dimmer, the music more subdued. "High roller section. If your boy had a streak of luck or a streak of foolishness, that's where they'd steer him." Before Rex or Yaz could ask more, a commotion erupted near one of the craps tables. A man screamed, a raw, animalistic sound of pure agony. Patrons turned, their expressions momentarily disturbed from their gambling stupor. Two burly security guards, dressed in the same sand-colored uniforms as the valets, were dragging the screaming man away. He struggled, his face pale with terror. "He lost," the bartender said, his voice flat. "Lost big." "Lost what?" Yaz asked, her stomach churning. The bartender just looked at her, his eyes empty. "Everything." The screaming faded as the man was hauled through an unmarked door. The casino patrons, after a moment, turned back to their games, the incident already forgotten, the rhythmic chiming of the slot machines, and the murmur of voices quickly re-establishing the casino's deceptive normalcy. Rex and Yaz exchanged another look. The bartender's hint, the screaming man, the gilded guide's evasiveness, it all pointed to something far more sinister than a mere gambling den. The mark of the lost, Yaz thought, wasn't just about failing compasses. It was about being drawn into this place, losing yourself piece by piece until there was nothing left to navigate with, not even your own soul. The stakes here weren't monetary, they were existential. And Leo was somewhere in the middle of it. Chapter 6. The shifting labyrinth. High roller section. Rex repeated the bartender's words, his gaze fixed on the dimly lit area. Let's go. They moved away from the bar, the bartender's unsettling pronouncements echoing in their minds. The path towards the indicated section was less crowded, the opulent Dacre giving way to something more restrained, more exclusive. Velvet ropes, attended by impassive guards, marked the entrance. As they approached, one of the guards, a mountain of a man with a neck as thick as Yaz's thigh, stepped forward, blocking their path. Private area, members only. His voice was a synthesized monotone. "We were told our party is in here," Rex said, his tone even but firm. "Leo Banner." The guard's eyes, hidden behind mirrored sunglasses even in the dim light, didn't flicker. No one by that name on the guest list. "Check again," Yaz insisted. "He's young, dark hair, probably looks scared out of his mind." Before the guard could respond, a familiar, melodious voice interjected. "Ah, Mr. Banner, Ms. Al-Jamil, so eager to rejoin your companion." The gilded guide materialized beside the guard, his smile as unsettling as ever. "Leo is indeed enjoying the unique diversions of our establishment, but perhaps you are not yet prepared for such rarefied experiences." "We're prepared to get him and leave," Rex growled. The gilded guide chuckled, a dry, rustling sound. "Leave? My dear Mr. Banner, one does not simply leave the shifting sands. One plays the game. One sees it through. To depart prematurely is to forfeit." The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken menace. "Then let us see him," Yaz said, trying to keep the tremor from her voice. The gilded guide considered them for a moment, his head tilted. "Very well. A brief visit, perhaps, but do not disrupt the other guests. They value their privacy." He gestured, and the guard stepped aside, unhooking the velvet rope. The high roller section was quieter, the air cooler. The lighting was subdued, casting long shadows. Here the patrons were fewer, their faces harder to read in the gloom. They played games Yaz didn't recognize, with cards that shimmered with an internal light and dice that seemed to roll with their own volition. The low hum of the casino was stronger here, vibrating through the plush carpet. The gilded guide led them down a corridor that seemed to stretch an impossible distance. Doors lined either side, heavy, unmarked portals of dark wood. "Leo is in one of these suites," the gilded guide said, his voice echoing slightly. "He has proven remarkably adept at certain games of chance, or perhaps chance has been remarkably adept with him." He stopped before one of the doors. "A word of caution. What you see may not be as it appears. Perception is a fluid thing within these walls." He then opened the door and gestured them inside. The room was opulent, a suite filled with antique furniture and silk hangings. And there, sitting at a small table, playing cards with two figures wreathed in shadow, was Leo. Or what looked like Leo. He was paler, thinner, his eyes wide and unfocused, with dark circles beneath them. He didn't look up as they entered. His hands moved mechanically, dealing cards from a strange, tar-black deck. "Leo," Rex exclaimed, striding forward. The figure at the table didn't react. He continued dealing. Yaz felt a prickle of unease. Something was terribly wrong. The air in the room was cold, stagnant. As Rex reached the table, one of the shadowed figures looked up. Its face was a blur, a swirl of darkness from which 2 points of red light gleamed like malevolent embers. A low growl emanated from it. "Leo, it's Uncle Rex. We're here to get you out." Rex reached for his nephew's shoulder. The moment his hand made contact, the illusion shattered. The opulent suite dissolved. The figures, Leo included, flickered and vanished like faulty holograms. Rex and Yaz found themselves standing in a narrow, stone corridor, damp and dimly lit by sputtering torches. The air was fetid, smelling of mildew and something else, something rotten. The door they had entered through was gone, replaced by solid rock. "What in the—" Rex spun around, his hand instinctively going for a weapon he no longer had access to. "A trick," Yaz breathed, her heart hammering. He said perception was fluid. The gilded guide's laughter echoed down the corridor, seeming to come from all directions at once. "Indeed, Ms. Al-Jamil, a simple test. You seek reality, yet you cling to illusion. The shifting sands offers whatever reality you desire, or dread." "Where is he?" Rex roared, his voice bouncing off the stone walls. "Where is my nephew?" "Closer than you think, and further than you can imagine," the voice mocked. "Perhaps he is the casino. Perhaps the casino is him. Such delightful ambiguities." Panic began to set in. They were trapped. The casino was actively playing with them, its architecture a sentient, malicious entity. "We need to find an exit," Yaz said, her voice tight with urgency. She tried one of the stone walls, solid, unyielding. They chose a direction at random and began to walk, then run down the corridor. It twisted and turned, leading them deeper into what felt like ancient catacombs beneath the glittering facade of the casino. Other corridors branched off, equally dark and menacing. Every turn looked the same. They were in a labyrinth. After what felt like an eternity, they stumbled into a small, circular chamber. In the center, a pedestal, and on the pedestal, Yaz's drone controller, and Rex's satellite phone. "Our things," Yaz said, rushing forward. She picked up the controller. It was cold to the touch, its screen dark. Rex grabbed his phone, also dead. "Why leave them here?" Rex wondered aloud. "Another game." As if in answer, the floor beneath them began to tremble. The stone walls groaned. Cracks appeared, spiderwebbing across the ancient masonry. Dust rained down from the ceiling. "The place is coming down," Yaz yelled. A section of the wall crumbled, revealing not an escape route but a swirling vortex of sand and darkness. The gilded guide's voice whispered from its depths. "The casino recycles its illusions, my friends, and sometimes its guests. Choose your exit carefully." The corridor they had come from began to collapse. Rocks rained down. "We have to go through there," Rex shouted over the din, pointing at the vortex. It was their only option. With a shared look of desperation, they plunged into the swirling chaos. The world dissolved into a maelstrom of roaring wind, stinging sand, and suffocating darkness. The casino was not just shifting its illusions, it was actively trying to unmake them. Chapter 7: Personalized Torments. The vortex spat them out onto plush carpeting. They lay gasping, disoriented, sand grinding in their teeth and hair. The roaring wind was gone, replaced by the familiar, insidious chiming of slot machines. They were back on the main casino floor, or a perfect replica of it. Gamblers milled about, unconcerned, as if two people hadn't just materialized from a collapsing stone passage. Rex coughed, pushing himself up. "Everyone all right?" Yaz nodded, brushing sand from her clothes. "Peachy, if you like being spat out of reality warps." She looked around. The casino floor seemed subtly different. The layout of the machines, the pattern on the carpet, the faces of the patrons, all slightly altered, like a half-remembered dream. "It's playing with us," Rex said, his jaw tight, "leading us in circles." The gilded guide was nowhere to be seen, for now. As they tried to get their bearings, Yaz noticed a flicker on one of the giant video screens that usually displayed jackpot winners or advertisements for shows. Instead, it showed a distorted image of her blog's homepage. The title, Nomad's Nexus, was twisted into Nowhere's Nexus. Mocking comments scrolled beneath, supposedly from her followers. "Lost again, Yaz. Should have stayed home. No one cares about your discoveries." A cold knot formed in Yaz's stomach. This was personal. The casino was delving into her life, her insecurities. "Rex," she began, but stopped. Rex was staring at a different screen, his face pale. It displayed grainy footage like old security tapes, a military operation in a dusty, war-torn village, soldiers moving through narrow streets, an explosion, screams. Rex flinched as if struck. "My last tour," he choked out, his voice hoarse. "The ambush, how?" The casino was showing them their failures, their fears. "It's not real, Rex," Yaz said, though her own heart was pounding from the attack on her online persona. "It's an illusion like the sweet." "It feels real," Rex whispered, his eyes still fixed on the traumatic images. The gilded guide's voice, smooth and solicitous, echoed from the casino speakers, audible only to them. "We strive to provide a personalized experience at the shifting sands. Memories, regrets. Such potent entertainment." "Show yourself, you coward," Rex roared, spinning around, searching for the source of the voice. The patrons around them continued their gambling, oblivious. Or perhaps, Yaz thought with a horrifying lurch, they were part of the illusion, puppets in this elaborate torment. The casino then shifted its tactics. For Yaz, slot machines began to display error messages she recognized from her own coding projects, symbols of her professional frustrations. The voices of the croupiers morphed into those of critical professors or dismissive tech bros she'd encountered. Every screen seemed to reflect her anxieties about her career, her choices. For Rex, the environment took on a more militaristic, threatening tone. The rhythmic chiming of slots began to sound like distant gunfire. The patterns in the carpet resembled topographical maps of hostile territories. Faces in the crowd momentarily morphed into those of fallen comrades, their eyes accusing. He kept seeing glimpses of a young man in the periphery, dark hair, frantic eyes Leo. But whenever he turned, the figure was gone. "It's trying to separate us," Yaz realized, grabbing Rex's arm as he started to chase another fleeting vision of his nephew. "Don't let it." Rex shook his head, trying to clear the images. He's here, I know he is. The guide said he was part of the casino now, Yaz reminded him gently. These are just echoes, traps. They pushed through the crowds, trying to find a service door, an emergency exit, anything that looked less like part of the casino's grand, deceptive design. Every corridor they tried either looped back on itself or ended in a featureless wall. The architecture was a fluid, hostile intelligence. They found themselves in a section filled with old, antique slot machines, relics from a bygone era. One machine, larger than the others, made of dark, polished wood and tarnished brass, had a single, stark word on its display: regret. As Rex passed it, the machine whirred to life. The reels spun, then landed on three symbols: a child's broken toy, a wilting rose, a faded photograph of a woman's smiling face. Rex stopped dead, his breath catching in his throat. "No," he whispered. Yaz didn't understand the symbols, but she saw the profound impact they had on Rex. His face, already grim, became a mask of deep, personal anguish. "What is it, Rex?" He didn't answer, just stared at the machine, his shoulders slumped. The casino had found a deeper wound, a more personal failure than the battlefield. The gilded guide's voice returned, soft, almost sympathetic, but laced with predatory triumph. "The most potent games are those we play against ourselves, wouldn't you agree, Sergeant? So many chances not taken, so many words unsaid." Rex suddenly lunged at the machine, his fists raised, a roar of pure fury tearing from his throat. He slammed his fists against the glass again and again. The glass didn't break. The machine merely chimed, as if registering a win. "Rex, stop," Yaz pulled him back. "It's what it wants, it feeds on this." He sagged against her, his rage spent, leaving behind a hollow despair. "My wife, my daughter, before the army took all of me." The casino had broken through his soldier's stoicism. It had found the man beneath the uniform and twisted the knife. Yaz held onto him, a small point of solidarity in this personalized hell. The shifting sands wasn't just a place of illusions. It was a vivisectionist of the soul, and it was meticulously dissecting them, one painful memory at a time. Their search for Leo was becoming a desperate fight for their own sanity. Chapter 8: The Archivist's Lament. The onslaught of personalized torments eventually subsided, leaving Rex and Yaz drained, emotionally raw. The casino floor returned to its previous state of deceptive normalcy, the specific visions replaced by the general, unsettling ambience. It was as if the Djinn, having feasted on their acute distress, had momentarily retreated to digest. "We need to find a way out of the main floor," Rex said, his voice still rough but his military discipline reasserting itself, a shield against the deeper pain the casino had exposed. "These games, these crowds, they're a distraction, a trap." Yaz agreed. There has to be a service area, a back office, something less curated. They began a systematic search, avoiding the central gaming areas and sticking to the periphery. They tried doors marked staff only, but they were either locked or opened into more casino floor. The layout remained stubbornly fluid, corridors subtly changing length or angle when they weren't directly observing them. It was like trying to map a dream. Finally, behind a bank of inert, darkened slot machines in a forgotten corner, Yaz found a door that felt different. It was plain, unadorned steel, with a simple, old-fashioned keyhole instead of an electronic lock. It was almost hidden, as if the casino had overlooked it in its constant reconfigurations. "Rex, look at this," she called softly. He joined her. He examined the door, then the frame. "This looks older, part of an original structure, maybe." Yaz tried the handle, locked. She pulled out the heavy wrench from her backpack. "Worth a shot." Rex nodded. "Stand back." He positioned the end of the wrench against the lock mechanism and slammed his palm against it. The old lock, surprisingly, gave way with a sharp crack. The door creaked open into darkness. A musty smell of old paper and dust wafted out. It was a stark contrast to the cloying perfumes of the casino. "Flashlights," Rex said, or rather his maglite. Yaz's phone, her only light source, was still dead. Rex clicked on the maglite, its powerful beam cutting through the gloom. They stepped into a small, cramped room. It was an office, but one that hadn't been used in decades. Dust lay thick on a rickety desk, a decaying swivel chair, and filing cabinets that were rusted shut. Cobwebs draped everything like macabre decorations. But it was the walls that drew their attention. They were covered, floor to ceiling, with tacked-on notes, newspaper clippings yellowed with age, and strange, hand-drawn diagrams. Maps of the casino that seemed to shift and change even as they looked at them. Compasses with multiple, conflicting needles. Equations that made no mathematical sense. And photographs, dozens of them. Faded black and white pictures of people, men, women, even a few children, their faces gaunt, their eyes wide with a familiar terror. Some were posed stiffly before the casino's entrance in different eras, judging by their clothes. Others were candid shots, seemingly taken inside, their subjects unaware, lost in the casino's thrall. "What is this place?" Yaz whispered, running her fingers over a brittle newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Mysterious DISAPPERANCES Baffled Desert SHERIFFS Gambling Oasis or Devil's Trap." The date was smudged, but looked like 1958. "An archive," Rex breathed, his light falling on a thick, leather-bound journal lying open on the desk. Someone was studying this place. He picked up the journal. The pages were filled with cramped, spidery handwriting, interspersed with more strange diagrams and desperate, rambling prose. "Listen to this," Rex said, his voice low. He read aloud. "October 14th. Year unknown. Time has no meaning here. The entity, the Djinn of the Wastes, as I call it, feeds on despair. The casino is its construct, a lure, a processing plant for souls. It draws them in with promises, then traps them in loops of their own regret. Navigation is impossible. It controls perception of space and direction. The mark of the lost is upon all who enter. It rewrites their inner compass." Yaz felt a chill. The mark of the lost, he named it. Rex continued reading, his voice tight. "It seeks strong emotions. Hope is a delicacy, defiance a challenge, love a feast. I have seen so many, consumed. Their memories become part of the casino's illusions, their despair woven into its fabric. My own, my family. I brought them here believing it was a haven from the dust bowl. Fools. We were all fools. The handwriting became more erratic, more desperate. It showed me Sarah's face in the cards, little Timmy's laughter in the slot machines. It knows my heart. It plays with it. I try to map its patterns, find a weakness. There must be a weakness, an anchor, something that binds it to this place, this illusion. The final entry was barely legible, scrawled across the page. The heart, it must have a heart, not of flesh but of will, of accumulated sorrow. Find the heart, disrupt the rhythm. Silence the song, silence. The ink trailed off. On the desk beside the journal lay an old, tarnished silver locket. Rex picked it up. It opened with a click. Inside, two miniature, faded photographs. A woman with kind eyes and a small boy with a gap-toothed grin. "The archivist," Yaz murmured, looking around the dusty, desperate room. "He never escaped. He became another one of its exhibits." "But he left this," Rex said, holding up the journal. "He found something. The heart. Disrupt the rhythm." He looked at Yaz, a new, grim determination in his eyes. "This isn't just about finding Leo anymore. This is about fighting back." The air in the small room suddenly grew colder. The beam of Rex's maglite flickered. From the casino beyond the steel door, a new sound began to emerge, overriding the usual cacophony. A slow, rhythmic pulsing, like a giant, unseen heart beginning to beat. Thump thump, thump thump. The gilded guide's voice, no longer mocking but cold and resonant, filled the tiny office, seeming to emanate from the very walls. Curiosity can be such a dangerous indulgence. Some secrets are best left buried in the sands. The archivist learned this. Now so shall you. The steel door slammed shut with a deafening clang, plunging them into near total darkness save for the struggling beam of Rex's light. The pulsing grew louder, more insistent. The casino knew they had found its hidden history, and it was not pleased. Chapter 9: The Djinn's Offer. The rhythmic pulsing filled the cramped office, vibrating through the floor, through their bones. Rex's maglite flickered erratically, casting dancing, distorted shadows that made the archivist's notes on the walls seem to writhe. The door, Yaz lunged for it, wrenching at the handle. It didn't budge. It sealed. Rex slammed his shoulder against it. The steel groaned but held firm. Trapped again. The gilded guide's voice, disembodied and chilling, swirled around them. "The archivist's little sanctuary is now your tomb, unless you choose to play a more interesting game." Thump thump, thump thump. The pulsing was a physical pressure now, making it hard to breathe. "What game?" Rex demanded, his voice tight with anger and a growing sense of dread. "A game of choice, a game of sacrifice," the guide purred. "The shifting sands appreciates a good wager, especially when the stakes are personal." A section of the wall opposite the door began to glow with an internal, sickly light. The archivist's notes and pictures curled and blackened as if touched by an invisible flame, then dissolved, revealing a shimmering, translucent surface, like a one-way mirror. Through it they saw an image form: Leo. He was in a small, cage-like room, huddled in a corner, his face pale and streaked with tears. He looked terrified, broken. He was muttering to himself, rocking back and forth. "Leo," Rex pressed his hands against the shimmering surface. It was cold, unyielding. "He is fragile," the gilded guide's voice whispered. "The casino's energies are potent. Not all guests adapt so well. He clings to memories of a world outside. Such attachments can be inconvenient." The image of Leo flickered, then changed. Now it showed Yaz's van, parked forlornly in the desert. Suddenly, the van's engine roared to life. Its headlights blazed. "Your escape route, Ms. Al-Jamil," the guide said. "Still functional, it seems, waiting for its driver." The image shifted again. Rex's Jeep. Beside it, a shadowy figure that looked vaguely like Rex himself, but younger, wearing his old army uniform. The figure climbed into the Jeep and drove away, not towards the casino, but back towards the distant highway, towards safety. "The life you left behind, Sergeant," the guide crooned. "A chance to return, to make different choices, perhaps." The images faded, replaced by the guide's own face, filling the shimmering surface, his obsidian eyes vast and empty. "The offer is simple. One of you can walk away, right now, untouched, free to leave the shifting sands. Memories of this place soften to a distant, unpleasant dream. Your vehicles will function. Your compasses will guide you true." "And the other?" Yaz asked, her voice barely a whisper. The guide's smile was reptilian. "The other stays, becomes a permanent guest, a part of our collection. Their essence will sustain the casino, enrich its games, add a new flavor to its illusions. A small price, surely, for one life spared." Thump, 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 thump. The poolsing seemed to mock them. "And Leo," Rex demanded, "what happens to my nephew?" "If one of you accepts the offer," the guide said, "young Leo will also be released. Not whole, perhaps. The desert has a way of changing a man, but he will be free of the casino's direct influence. A mercy, considering his current trajectory." Silence filled the small room, broken only by the relentless, heavy beat. Rex and Yaz looked at each other. The Djinn's offer was a poisoned chalice, designed to tear them apart, to break their fragile alliance with the ultimate selfish choice. "Don't listen to it, Rex," Yaz said, her voice firm despite the fear coiling in her gut. "It's another trick. It wants us to turn on each other." "But Leo," Rex's gaze was tormented. The image of his terrified nephew was seared into his mind. "To save him, to guarantee his freedom. If I stay." "Then it wins," Yaz argued. "It gets what it wants, your despair, your sacrifice. And who's to say it will even keep its word about Leo, or about letting the other one go free?" The gilded guide chuckled. "Such cynicism, Ms. Al-Jamil. The shifting sands always honors its bargains. The price is merely steep." The poolsing intensified. The air grew thin. Yaz felt a wave of dizziness. "Think of it, Sergeant," the guide pressed, his voice directly in Rex's ear now, though his image remained on the wall. "Your nephew safe. A life for a life. A soldier's sacrifice. Is it not what you were trained for?" Rex closed his eyes, his face a mask of agony. The weight of the decision was crushing. His duty as an uncle, his ingrained instinct to protect. The casino was exploiting his deepest values. Yaz saw the struggle on his face. She knew he was considering it. The archivist's journal lay on the floor where Rex had dropped it. Find the heart. Disrupt the rhythm. There's another way, Yaz said, her voice gaining strength. She snatched up the journal. The archivist believed there was a weakness, something that powers this place. If we can find it, we can save Leo and ourselves. We don't have to play its sadistic game. The Gilded Guide's image flickered with annoyance. The ramblings of a broken mind. He found only madness here. Thump, 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 thump. The room seemed to shrink around them. He found hope, Yaz countered, her eyes blazing, and he left us a map of sorts. She brandished the journal. This offer of yours we decline. Rex opened his eyes. He looked at Yaz at her defiant stance, the journal clutched in her hand. A spark of his old fire returned. She was right. Surrender was not an option. She's right, Rex said, his voice regaining its steel. We're not taking your deal, we're taking you down. For the first time, the Gilded Guide's smile faltered. A flicker of something cold and ancient, something akin to fury, crossed his features. The shimmering wall went dark. The pulsing beat quickened, becoming a frantic, hammering rhythm. A regrettable decision, the guide's voice thundered, no longer smooth but harsh and grating. You have chosen the path of greater suffering. So be it. The casino will claim you both, and the boy will be its centerpiece. The floor beneath them began to shake violently. The steel door buckled inwards. The walls cracked. The archivist's sanctuary was being torn apart. The Djinn was done playing subtle games. Chapter 10. The Cartography of Sorrow. The archivist's office disintegrated around them. Stone and metal shrieked as the casino's structure warped and reconfigured. Rex grabbed Yaz's arm, pulling her away from a collapsing section of wall just as tons of rock crashed down where they'd been standing. The journal, Yaz yelled, shielding her head from falling debris. Don't lose it. Rex had tucked it securely into his belt. The maglite, miraculously, still functioned, its beam cutting erratic paths through the dust-choked chaos. The floor tilted violently, sending them sliding towards a newly formed chasm that opened up with a sickening groan. Rex dug his heels in, arresting their slide inches from the precipice. Below, a maelstrom of swirling sand and distorted lights churned, another one of the casino's void-like traps. The hammering pulse, the Djinn's rage, resonated through everything. It was no longer a rhythmic beat, but a chaotic, destructive throbbing. We need to move, Rex shouted over the din. Find stable ground. They scrambled away from the chasm, navigating a landscape that was actively trying to kill them. Corridors twisted into impossible angles, floors buckled, ceilings caved in. It was like being inside a malevolent, dying beast. The heart, Yaz coughed, spitting out dust. The archivist said it controls the rhythm if we can find it. How do we find anything in this madhouse? Rex retorted, narrowly dodging a falling chandelier that exploded in a shower of crystal shards. The journal. Yaz fumbled for it, pulling it from Rex's belt. She flipped through the brittle pages, her fingers clumsy with urgency. Rex's light dancing over the spidery script and bizarre diagrams. He drew maps, she said, but they keep changing, he said. It anchors to the deepest sorrow, a confluence of despair, not a place but a state, reflected in a place. "That's helpful," Rex grunted, kicking open a jammed door that led into what looked like a giant, wrecked kitchen, steam hissing from broken pipes, a greasy fire burning in a corner. "Wait," Yaz said, her eyes scanning a particularly dense section of notes. "He mentions a chamber of echoes, a place where the casino stores the strongest emotional imprints. He thought the heart might be shielded there or connected to it. He described a sound, a constant whisper like 1,000 voices. Thump crash, thump crunch. The casino's destructive tantrum continued. Whispers. Rex listened intently, trying to filter out the sounds of demolition. Amidst the chaos, he could discern something else, a faint, sibilant chorus almost drowned out, but there. That way. He pointed through the wrecked kitchen, towards a service corridor that seemed, for the moment, relatively intact. They plunged into it, the whispers growing louder, more distinct. It sounded like hundreds, thousands of hushed voices, all speaking at once, a cacophony of grief, regret, and fear. The air grew colder, heavier. The corridor opened into a vast, circular chamber. Unlike the garish opulence of the casino or the crumbling ruin of the archivist's office, this place was stark, minimalist. The walls were smooth, black, obsidian-like, reflecting no light. In the center of the chamber, a colossal, crystalline structure pulsed with a faint, sickly luminescence. It was vaguely heart-shaped, but more like a geode, its facets shifting and rearranging. This was not the source of the destructive throbbing that shook the casino. This was something else. The whispers emanated from it, a constant, sorrowful sigh. Thump crash. A tremor shook the chamber, and dust drifted from the unseen ceiling. The chamber of echoes, Yaz breathed, her eyes wide. And that must be what he meant by the heart. It wasn't a heart of flesh, but as the archivist had guessed, a heart of accumulated sorrow. Each whisper, Yaz realized, was a fragment of a trapped soul, a memory of pain, a lost hope, all coalesced into this monstrous, crystalline organ. The gilded guide stood before the crystalline heart, his back to them. He wasn't smiling. His form seemed less solid here, more like concentrated shadow. He raised his hands towards the heart, and the whispers intensified, swirling around him. "He's drawing power from it," Rex surmised, his voice low, "or communing with it." The destructive throbbing that was shaking the rest of the casino seemed to lessen slightly here, as if this chamber was somehow insulated, or the Djinn was focusing its destructive energy elsewhere, perhaps to prevent them from reaching this core. The archivist said, "Disrupt the rhythm," Yaz recalled, looking at the pulsing crystal. "How do we do that too? That?" Rex scanned the chamber. His eyes fell on several large, heavy-duty power cables snaking across the floor, disappearing into the base of the crystalline heart. They looked incongruous in this otherwise ethereal space, almost an afterthought. Maybe it needs a more conventional kind of power too, to maintain this form. The gilded guide turned slowly, his obsidian eyes fixing on them. "So, the rats have found their way to the engine room. Impressive, but futile." His voice was no longer the smooth baritone. It was deeper, layered, as if many voices spoke through him. The voice of the Djinn itself. "This is where it ends," Rex said, stepping forward. The Djinn chuckled, a sound like grinding stones. Indeed, for you. It raised a hand. The air crackled. A bolt of pure, dark energy shot from its fingertips towards Rex. Yaz screamed, "Rex, look out." Rex dove, the energy bolt searing the air where he'd stood, striking the black wall and leaving a smoking, molten scar. "The cables," Yaz shouted, pointing. "If we can cut them." The Djinn laughed again. Such crude tactics. It gestured and the floor around the heart rippled. Figures began to rise from the black, reflective surface, shadowy replicas of casino patrons, their eyes burning with malevolent red light. They advanced on Rex and Yaz, their movements jerky, unnatural. "Minions," Rex grunted, hefting his maglite like a club. "Figures." While Rex engaged the shadowy figures, Yaz scrambled towards the cables. They were thick, heavily insulated. Her wrench wouldn't cut them. She looked around desperately. Her eyes landed on a metal maintenance panel on the wall, slightly ajar. She wrenched it open. Inside, a clutter of circuit breakers and what looked like a heavy emergency axe, its blade dulled but serviceable. Yes, she grabbed the axe. The Djinn, momentarily distracted by Rex's fierce, if one-sided, battle with its shadow guards, turned its attention to Yaz as she raised the axe. Insolent gnat. Another bolt of dark energy flew. Yaz ducked, the axe heavy in her hands. She swung it at the nearest cable. Sparks flew as metal hit metal, but the axe bit deep. Crunch! One cable severed. The crystalline heart flickered. The whispers faltered for a moment. The shadow guards attacking Rex stumbled, their forms wavering. "It's working," Rex yelled, smashing one of the shadows with his maglite. It dissolved into wisps of smoke. Yaz swung again at another cable. The Djinn shrieked, a sound that was pure, undiluted fury, and lunged towards her, its shadowy form elongating, claws of darkness extending from its fingers. Chapter 11. Echoes of the Nephew. Rex saw the Djinn lunge for Yaz. He dispatched the last wavering shadow guard with a brutal swing and charged, shouting her name. He threw himself at the Djinn's elongated form, tackling it around its insubstantial waist. They both went sprawling. Contact with the Djinn was like embracing a storm of freezing needles and burning ash. Pain seared through him, but he held on, trying to buy Yaz time. "Cut them," he roared, his voice strained. Yaz, recovering from her near miss, swung the axe with all her might. Crack! Another cable parted, showering sparks. The crystalline heart dimmed further. The whispers faltered again, becoming disjointed, confused. The destructive throbbing throughout the casino lessened significantly, replaced by a groaning, shuddering sound, as if the entire structure was in agony. The Djinn screamed, writhing in Rex's grip, its form flickering violently. "You will not destroy me. I am this place." It threw Rex off with a surge of dark power. He slammed into the far wall, stars exploding behind his eyes. The maglite clattered away. Yaz raised the axe for a third strike, but the Djinn was on her in an instant, its shadowy claws raking across her arm. She cried out, pain lancing up to her shoulder. The axe fell from her numbed fingers. "Insignificant mortals," the Djinn hissed, its face inches from hers, its breath like grave dust. You only delay the inevitable. But the damage was done. The heart was failing. The chamber was filled with the sound of shattering crystal as facets of the great structure cracked and fell away. The whispers were dying, replaced by a sound like rushing wind. Then from within the fracturing heart, a new light began to shine, not the sickly luminescence, but a clear, pure white light. And with it, a single, clear voice. Uncle Rex. Rex, struggling to his feet, froze. Yaz, pinned by the djinn, stared. The voice was Leo's. The crystalline heart shattered completely, exploding outwards in a blinding flash of white light and a shockwave that threw the djinn back, screeching. When the light subsided, the shards of the heart lay scattered like fallen stars. And standing where it had been, blinking in the sudden brightness, was Leo Banner. He was thin, pale, his clothes ragged, but his eyes were clear, focused. Confused but clear. Leo, Rex stumbled towards him. Uncle Rex, Yaz, Leo looked from one to the other, then around the collapsing chamber. What happened? I was playing cards, and then everything went dark. I heard voices. The gilded guide, or what was left of it, its form now tattered, shadowy, and indistinct, let out a final, agonized howl. My heart, my anchor, you have broken it, broken me. The casino was dying. The groaning and shuddering intensified. Sections of the obsidian walls cracked and fell, revealing not solid rock but swirling, chaotic sand. The illusion was crumbling. We need to get out of here now, Yaz shouted, clutching her bleeding arm. Rex grabbed Leo, pulling him close. Are you hurt? I don't think so, Leo stammered, still dazed. Just lost, I was so lost. The casino is coming down, Rex yelled, the way we came in. But the corridor they'd used to enter the Chamber of Echoes was gone, replaced by a solid wall of falling debris. The tattered remnants of the gilded guide rose, its form barely coherent, a vortex of spite and shadow. You will not escape. If I am undone, this desert will be your tomb. It lunged, not at Rex or Yaz, but at Leo, its shadowy claws extended. Rex shoved Leo behind him, meeting the djinn's attack head-on. He had no weapon, only his fists and his fury. He struck out, his blow passing through the djinn's shadowy form with little effect, though the entity recoiled slightly, its essence weakened. Yaz, seeing Rex in danger, scrambled for the fallen axe. Her arm throbbed, but adrenaline surged. She gripped the handle, swung it wildly. The blade connected with the djinn's dissipating form. There was a sound like tearing fabric, a final, drawn-out shriek of despair and rage, and the gilded guide dissolved into a cloud of black dust that quickly dispersed, sucked away by unseen currents. The casino groaned its death throes. The floor beneath them cracked open. This way, Leo shouted, pointing to a section of the wall that was shimmering, becoming translucent. Through it they could see the desert night, the stars brilliant in a clear sky. An escape. He's part of it still, Yaz realized. He can see the seams in its reality. They scrambled towards the shimmering wall as the Chamber of Echoes collapsed around them. Rex pushed Leo through first, then Yaz. He took one last look back at the chaos, the end of the shifting sands, then plunged after them into the cool, clean air of the desert night. They tumbled onto the sand, coughing, bruised but alive. Behind them, the vast, opulent structure of the Shifting Sands casino flickered like a dying ember. Its lights dimmed, its towers sagged. With a final, drawn-out sigh that sounded like 1,000 whispering voices released, it dissolved. One moment it was there, a dying titan. The next, only empty desert under the starlight as if it had never been. The low hum was gone. The oppressive silence of the true desert had returned. Chapter 12. The Price of Freedom. They lay on the cool sand, the silence of the desert a balm after the cacophony and terror of the casino. The only sounds were their own ragged breaths and the distant chirp of crickets. The stars blazed overhead, cold and indifferent, a sight Yaz hadn't realized she'd missed so profoundly. Rex was the first to move, pushing himself into a sitting position. He looked at Leo, who was staring at the empty space where the casino had stood, his expression a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. "It's gone," Leo whispered. "Gone," Rex confirmed, his voice rough. He reached out and pulled his nephew into a fierce hug. "You're safe, son, you're safe." Leo clung to him, trembling. The bravado that had led him into the desert was stripped away, leaving behind a scared, traumatized young man. Yaz sat up, wincing as pain shot through her injured arm. The djinn's claws had left deep gashes, bleeding sluggishly. "We need to deal with this," she said, trying to assess the damage in the dim starlight. Rex released Leo and was immediately at her side. "Let me see." His soldier's training kicked in. He examined the wounds, his expression grim. "Nasty. We need to clean and bind this. My first aid kit is in the Jeep. If the Jeep is still here, and if it works." The Jeep, Yaz's van. The Gilded Guide's promise of escape for one, its threat of doom for all. What was real now? "My van," Yaz began. "It was over that way, I think," she pointed vaguely. Her internal compass, which had been so violently skewed, felt quiet, blank. "And my Jeep was near the entrance," Rex said, his gaze sweeping the empty desert. They stood unsteady. Leo leaned heavily on Rex. "Let's try to find your van first, Yaz," Rex decided. "It might have better supplies." They began to walk slowly across the sand. The desert seemed vast, empty, almost alien after the claustrophobic confines and shifting realities of the casino. Every shadow seemed to hold a lingering threat. Every gust of wind carried the ghost of a whisper. After about 20 minutes of walking, guided by Yaz's memory of landmarks that now seemed unreliable, Leo suddenly stopped. "There," he pointed. In the distance, a dark shape. As they drew closer, it resolved into Yaz's van. It stood silent, a familiar silhouette against the starlit horizon. "Betsy, I," Yaz murmured, a wave of relief washing over her. She fumbled for her keys, her good hand shaking, the smart fob. She pressed the unlock button. The van's lights flashed, a soft click as the locks disengaged. Yaz almost wept. She scrambled into the driver's seat, inserted the key. The dashboard lights came on. She turned the ignition. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. "Yes," she yelled, thumping the steering wheel. Rex clapped her on the shoulder, a rare smile cracking his grim face. Leo looked on, a flicker of his old self returning. They found Yaz's comprehensive first aid kit. Rex expertly cleaned and bandaged her arm. The wounds were deep, angry red, but not, he thought, immediately life-threatening. "Your Jeep next," Yaz said, once her arm was secured. "And then civilization, a hospital for this arm and a very, very long sleep for all of us." Finding Rex's Jeep proved more difficult. The casino's entrance had been a grand, specific place. Now there was only anonymous desert. They drove in what they thought was the right direction, Yaz's headlights cutting through the darkness. Her GPS flickered to life. It showed their location, a blinking dot in a vast empty space on the map. No casino, no roads nearby. Her phone, when she checked it, had a single bar of service. Enough for an emergency call, perhaps. "My compass," Rex said suddenly. He retrieved it from his pocket. The needle swung, then settled, pointing steadily north. True north. The mark of the lost was broken. The Djinn's influence was truly gone. They found the Jeep an hour later, almost by accident, nestled in a small depression as if the desert had tried to swallow it. It too started. Rex drove it, following Yaz's van. As the first hint of dawn touched the eastern horizon, painting the sky in hues of purple and orange, they reached a paved road. A forgotten highway, cracked and weathered, but a tangible link to the world they had almost lost. Yaz pulled over. Rex stopped beside her. They got out, stretching, looking at the rising sun. "We did it," Yaz said, a note of wonder in her voice. "We actually did it." Rex nodded, his gaze distant. "We did." He looked at Leo, who was asleep in the passenger seat of the Jeep, his face peaceful for the first time in days. "But there's always a price." Yaz looked at her bandaged arm. The pain was a dull, persistent throb. "Some prices are worth paying." Rex didn't reply. He was thinking of the archivist, of all the souls trapped in that crystalline heart, their whispers now silenced. He thought of the terror in Leo's eyes, the personalized torments they had endured. The casino was gone, but its memory, its touch, would linger. They were free. But freedom, Yaz realized, looking at Rex's haunted expression, wasn't always a clean escape. Sometimes it was just the beginning of learning to live with the scars. The shifting sands had taken its toll, even in its destruction. The desert kept its secrets, and sometimes it kept a piece of those who dared to uncover them. The sun rose higher, chasing away the last of the night's shadows, but not all of them. Not the ones they carried inside. Chapter 13. Whispers on the Wire. Days later, Yaz sat in a sterile hospital room, her arm in a sling. The rhythmic beep of a monitor a counterpoint to the city sounds drifting through the open window. The doctors had called the wounds unusual, puzzled by the strange, almost corrosive-looking inflammation around the edges, but antibiotics were doing their work. Rex had been stoic, giving a carefully edited version of events to the authorities. A camping trip gone wrong, a run-in with feral dogs, a nephew lost and found. It was flimsy, but in the absence of any other evidence, and with Leo too traumatized to offer a coherent account, it was accepted. For now. Leo was in a different hospital, undergoing psychiatric evaluation. The physical ordeal was over for him, but the mental scars ran deep. He spoke of impossible card games, of shadowy figures whispering promises and threats, of a crushing despair that had almost consumed him. The shifting sands had left its indelible mark on his young mind. Rex visited Yaz daily. He was quiet, withdrawn, the grim lines on his face etched deeper. He'd sit by her bed, sometimes talking, sometimes just staring out the window. The easy camaraderie they'd forged in the crucible of the casino was still there, but overlaid with a shared trauma that needed no words. "How's Leo today?" Yaz asked during one such visit. Rex sighed, running a hand over his tired face. "Better. He asked for a cheeseburger. Doctors say that's progress." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "He also asked if you were going to blog about the demon casino. Told him probably best to keep that one off the internet." Yaz managed a weak smile. "Good call. Some stories are better left untold." But she knew she would write about it eventually. Not for her blog, not for public consumption, for herself. To try and make sense of it, to purge the lingering horror. Her laptop sat on the bedside table. She tried to access her old blog posts, her social media. Everything was there, normal. The nowhere's nexus and the mocking comments she'd seen in the casino were gone, as if they'd never existed. Another illusion. Or was this the illusion? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. Her drone, Betsy, was truly gone. A material loss, insignificant compared to what else they'd faced, but it was another tie to the normalcy that felt increasingly distant. One afternoon, a detective visited Yaz, Detective Miller. Plainclothes, weary eyes, a polite but persistent manner. He asked more questions about their ordeal in the desert, about the feral dogs, about why their electronics had all failed simultaneously. Yaz stuck to the official story, Rex's carefully constructed narrative. Miller listened, his expression unreadable. "Ms. Al-Jamal," he said as he was about to leave, "I've been a cop in this state for 20 years. The desert, it does strange things to people, and sometimes strange things happen in the desert, things that don't make the official reports." He paused, his gaze direct. "If you remember anything else, anything at all about what really happened out there, my card." He placed it on her bedside table. Yaz watched him go, a knot of unease tightening in her chest. How much did he suspect? How much did anyone know about places like the shifting sands? Later that evening, Rex was with her when her personal cell phone, the one that had been a dead brick in the desert, suddenly rang. It had been charging by her bed. They both stared at it. It was an unknown number. Yaz hesitated, then answered, putting it on speaker. "Hello." Silence. Then a faint sound, a whisper, not words, just a sibilant breath like sand skittering across glass. Then another sound, the distinct, unmistakable jingle of a slot machine paying out, a ghostly, distorted echo. Clink, clink, jingle, jingle. Yaz's blood ran cold. Rex stiffened, his eyes wide with alarm. The line went dead. Yaz slammed the phone down, her hand trembling. It can't be." Rex picked up the phone, his expression grim. He checked the call log. Unknown number, no record of an incoming call. "But we heard it," Yaz insisted, her voice shaking. "The whispers, the slots." An echo, Rex said, though he didn't sound convinced. A crossed line, interference. But they both knew. The Djinn was destroyed. The casino was gone. But its essence, its accumulated sorrow, its countless trapped moments, perhaps some fragments had become untethered, drifting in the ether. Or perhaps something else, something older and equally hungry, had taken notice of the void left by the shimming sands. The desert had many secrets, and some, it seemed, did not stay buried. The game might be over, but the echoes, Yaz feared, would linger for a very, very long time. The price of their freedom was not just the scars they carried, but the knowledge that such places, such entities, existed just beyond the veil of the ordinary world, waiting, always waiting. Chapter 14: The Unsettled Dust. Weeks turned into months. Yaz recovered physically, the scars on her arm fading to pale lines, a permanent reminder. Leo was released from psychiatric care, subdued and quiet, but slowly re-engaging with the world. He decided to go to college, to study something solid, something tangible like engineering. He never wanted to see the desert again. Rex sold his house. He said he needed a change, but Yaz knew he was trying to outrun the ghosts of the shifting sands, the memory of his own personalized torments. He bought an old sailboat, planning to see the ocean. Another vast, indifferent expanse, but one made of water, not deceitful sand. Yaz tried to return to her life, to her blog. She posted about mundane travels, beautiful landscapes, interesting cultures. But the thrill was gone. Every remote location, every unexplained phenomenon now carried a sinister undertone. She found herself looking over her shoulder, half expecting a gilded guide to step out from the shadows, offering a game she couldn't refuse. The phantom phone calls continued sporadically, always an unknown number, always the faint whispers, the distant chime of slots, sometimes a fragment of a voice from the chamber of echoes. She stopped answering, but she knew they were there. She met Rex one last time before he set sail. They sat at a quiet diner, the awkwardness of their shared, unspeakable experience hanging between them. "You heading out soon?" Yaz asked. Rex nodded. "Tomorrow, high tide." He looked at her, his eyes searching. "You doing okay?" "As okay as can be expected," she replied with a wry smile. "You?" "The ocean is big," he said. "Lots of room to think or not think." He paused. "Those calls, you still getting them?" Yaz nodded slowly. "Sometimes you." "Once or twice," he admitted. "Thought it was my imagination." "It isn't," Yaz said quietly. They sat in silence for a moment. The waitress refilled their coffee. "The archivist," Rex said finally. "He spent his life trying to understand it, to fight it. He failed. We got lucky." "We had his notes," Yaz reminded him, "and each other." "Still," Rex said, "it feels unfinished, like we closed a chapter, not the book." Yaz knew what he meant. The shifting sands was gone, but the entity, the concept behind it, the Djinn, the spirit of that desolate, hungry place, could it truly be destroyed? Or had they merely dispersed it like scattering ashes on the wind? "Maybe some books don't have an ending," Yaz said. "Maybe they just have pauses." Rex gave a grim nod. He stood up, putting some bills on the table. Take care of yourself, Yaz. Stay out of deserts. You too, Rex. Fair winds. They shook hands, a firm, lingering grip. Then he was gone. Yaz finished her coffee, the phantom whispers seeming to echo in the clatter of the diner. She paid her bill and stepped out into the bustling city street. People hurried past, oblivious, caught up in their own lives, their own small gambles. She thought of Detective Miller, his knowing eyes. She thought of the vast, empty spaces on the map. The desert was still out there, and its dust, once disturbed, rarely settled completely. That night she started writing, not for her blog but in a plain, unmarked journal much like the archivists. She wrote about Rex, about Leo, about the gilded guide and the impossible architecture of the shifting sands. She wrote about the mark of the lost, the personalized hells, the chamber of echoes, and the crystalline heart. She wrote to remember, to bear witness. And she wrote because, deep down, she knew Rex was right. It wasn't over. The casino was a symptom, not the disease. And somewhere in the desolate places of the world, or perhaps even in the hidden corners of the human heart, other games were always beginning. The last page of her entry for that night simply read, "The shifting sands is gone, but the desert remembers, and it whispers." Her phone, sitting on the nightstand, remained dark, silent, for now. But Yaz knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that the silence was only temporary. The next call would come. The game, in some new and horrifying form, would always seek new players. Always. The end.